Hello, and thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. All of you who have tuned in from YouTube and Facebook, thank you so much, and welcome to the Ella Johnson Show. Now, on this show, we set the table for Real Talk TV. Nothing is off limits on this show. So, from time to time, we'll bring people on with their true life stories. Now, you know how I feel about domestic violence. It continues. And tonight we have a very special guest who's going to share her story with us. But I want to ask you guys a question first. Do you think you'd be able to notice a situation that had domestic violence in it? Because friends, loved ones, a lot of you are walking and living around people right now who you have no idea that they're suffering in the dark. They're suffering from domestic violence. Now, I want to share a clip with you guys. Movie, Safe Haven. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen this movie, but it's a movie and it's about domestic violence. Get an idea of what's really going on in people's lives. Hold on just a second. Little technical difficulty there. But we're going to get it, guys, for you just a second, because you really want to see this, because, a lot of people are really suffering in domestic violence, and a lot of you have no idea.
I need to find her, Jen.
Kevin, you sent a nationwide APB. She's not a murderer, for Christ's sake. She's your goddamn wife.
Something smells amazing.
Hey, you're home early.
Oh, you're killing me.
How was your day?
Tiring, sweaty, hot, horrible.
Lovely. What's this for?
What's it for? I need an excuse to give my wife a gift.
It's beautiful.
You
Thank
like
you.
it?
Yeah, it's really gorgeous.
May I?
Of course.
This is the best pie I've ever tasted.
Yeah? It's a new recipe.
So good. So good.
Thank you. Are you done with this?
Yeah. You think I'm done with that?
No. I was just coming to pour you some more.
Hey, you want to say something? You say it.
I don't have anything to say.
You got that look.
I don't have any luck.
What do you want from me?
Nothing. I don't want anything.
How many times do you have to hear me say I'm sorry? You won't let it rest. Every moment of every day you want me to apologize. You make...
No, it's fine. I'm just gonna go put on some
You walk away from me? Huh? I want you, baby. I give you everything. Everything.
Stop, please, Kevin, stop.
What do you want from me, huh?
Please, please, no. Stop.
Listen to me. Listen to me. You know I love you. I gave you the necklace for a reason. Stop fighting. Stop fighting. But you want to walk away from me? What do you do?
Domestic violence is a violent act, as you can see in the video. But would you believe that 2/3 of the women don't go to a doctor, don't get professional medical help. They don't get any care. They're just suffering in silence. But I want you to meet my guest tonight, who's going to share her story about how she got out and how she survived. She's a victor now and no longer a victim. Jenifer Knighton, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on tonight. It's
I'm
a
so excited.
privilege.
We had some difficulty here earlier, but we figured it out. I tell you,
Yes.
two minds are good. Now, I want to tell everybody a little bit about who you are. You're a mom of four.
Hmm.
You have a bachelor's degree in human services. You're a counselor, substance abuse counselor, and you're just incredible. You're doing a lot of things to change lives for other people. Welcome to the show. What else would you like everybody to know about you that I didn't tell them already?
Thank you. So my journey started in Florida. I was born and raised, and I had a very traumatic childhood. Um, a lot of abuse, and I was 14 years old when I got into my first abusive relationship. It wasn't something that I knew anything about. I'm 35 now, so you know, back then it was nothing. It wasn't talked about as much. But I stayed for 6 years, and it was a life. It became a lifestyle for me. Uh, I didn't know any different, and
Right.
I just I settled for the only thing that I knew, abuse. Um, and I think I was about 19 years old, 19 or 20, and I decided, I don't want to live like this. I don't want my kids to grow up and go through this. And I got out of that relationship. I had dropped out of school, teen mom, high school dropout, developed an eating disorder. And then I left that relationship and I went into another abusive relationship, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I
Yeah,
always blamed I blamed myself. Like,
of
why is this
course.
happening to me from childhood?
Now
Um,
let's go back to that 14-year-old situation. You said you were 14 years old when you
mhm.
got into your first abusive relationship. What relationship were you in at 14 that was abusive?
I was with a 23-year-old man,
At
and
14?
at 14, and I hid it from my mother. Uh,
Okay.
I like I said, the abuse was normal to me, and the secrecy. We grow up, and a lot of victims, when their children, they're sexually abused, and a lot of times you're told to hush. You don't talk about it. You don't tell anybody, and that's kind of what I lived by for a very long time. And I remember, I think I was
So
about, huh?
what kinds of things were you going through when you were 14 with this 23-year-old man? What was he doing to you?
He became my partner. He was physically abusive. Even before we had our child together, you know, he became physically abusive, and um it was a very physically abusive relationship. Um but I didn't I didn't see anything wrong with it. I thought I was grown.
Yeah.
Um I made the decision I was going to leave my house and do whatever I wanted to do. And um,
So talk to me about the people that were around you. Did you ever have black eyes or any signs whatsoever that you were being abused for people to notice?
so I was 14 when I got with him, and by the age of 15, he made me drop out of school. So I became very isolated. And by the time I was 16, I got pregnant with my older daughter. And, we moved in together, and I just isolated myself from everybody. So nobody knew what was going on. I went. I think I had a black eye, or I I had a bruise on my face, and the case manager was like, you don't have to live like that. And I looked at her and I said, what are you talking about? I fell down the stairs.
Mm.
Um, so it was very well hidden, and that's typical in domestic violence relationships, even especially with physical abuse. We always find some excuse for it, and
Wow.
it's it's hard because people say, well, why didn't they just leave, or you would have never thought. But there's signs, and there's signs that society misses, especially like isolating. You stop going out with your friends, you quit school, and those are things that people should recognize, but they don't. And I kind of associate domestic violence with like the rape culture. It's it's so well it's so very it's accepted, and people don't know how harmful it is to a victim. um
Well, talk
the
to me a little bit about that. You're 14 and you were with him. How many years were you with this young man?
For 6 years.
6 years you were with him. Now,
Hmm.
what was it like living in the household with him? I mean, of course, he was abusing you, but you mentioned that you were going through financial. You had a lot of different types of abuse that you were dealing with. Tell me a little bit more about that, and how did you leave this guy?
So I wasn't allowed to work. I was financially dependent on him. Not only was I not allowed to work, I didn't have an education. um I was 16 years old, and who's gonna hire me? uh so I mean, I was dependent on him in every way, and uh emotionally abusive. He abused me with my education because he made me stop going to school. And I don't there was a point in my life when I just felt so bad because we had a child together, and I think that's what a lot of victims struggle with. What about the kids?
Right.
And we don't realize that staying with an abuser is more harmful than leaving an abuser.
Would the kids see you getting abused? Would they see him beating you? Would they see it?
No, no,
No.
it was all in the dark. Um, and I think so. When I was about 19,
Okay, so your audio is kind of going out there.
um, like this, and is that better?
Yeah, that's better. So start
Can
from
you
when
hear
you
me
were
now?
19. Yeah,
Okay.
when you were 19.
Yeah, so when I was about 19, I was like, I don't want to live like this. And um I ended up leaving him, but the abuse continued.
How's
He
that?
would
How is that if you left? How did it continue?
It's actually typical. We would exchange the child, and the that's when I want to say that's when the mental abuse becomes worse. Um because you're not they're you're in public, like if you're exchanging the child in public, but there's more people around, so it kind of shifts from physical abuse to more mental abuse. You're a whore, uh
Mm.
you're worthless, and then from that to, oh, I love you, I miss you, I can't live without you. And people don't realize that's another tactic, another abuse tactic. It's not love. They don't miss you. It's another maneuver that they use to bring you back in so that they can keep abusing you.
Right. So once you had left, you had left from him and you're out and you guys are exchanging the kids. At any time did you go back to live in the
I
same
did.
household? You did. Why?
I did. Um, because it was easier. Sometimes, you know, the abuse becomes so overwhelming. It's just easier to go back.
Easier to go
Um,
back.
and because of the lack of resources, uh, we, I think for me, I didn't have a lot of resources. I believed that that's what I deserved. That was normal for me. And, I just was, decided I was going to settle. Um, and then again, I don't know what the breaking point was, but I knew, there came a point where, I knew I didn't want to live like that anymore.
Right.
And
You saw the video, the little clip
mhm.
of Safe Haven. And that's a movie that I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing that in their lives. Is there anything from that clip that was familiar to you that you've experienced?
Oh yeah, it just made me cringe.
I'm sure. I saw you in the backstage here. I saw you. And I was like, no.
Yeah,
What part made you cringe? I mean, all of it was devastating, but what part specifically made you cringe?
um, all of it, like you do everything in your power to please this person, but nothing's good enough. And um what you actually witnessed in the video of what she was doing, it's actually reactive abuse. So when a victim starts reacting, it becomes even more challenging to leave, because what the abuser does is they start telling you, well, you're hitting me too. Or, like in the video, she stabbed him.
Right.
Well, she stabbed him because he was trying to kill her. But
Did
in
you
in
ever fight back?
I did.
You
I
did.
did. And I can definitely relate to that. I blamed myself a lot, and um well, I fought back. He hit me, I hit him back, so we're both abusing each other. But that's not the reality. It's a power struggle in a abusive relationship. It's never There's no mutuality. Um the abuser's always going to be in control, and by you reacting, that's just another abuse tactic for them to use to keep you under their
Under their
under.
thumb. Did you
Mhm.
ever call the police on him?
I did not.
Never call the police.
No.
Wow. Is it because you just felt like there was no use? He would beat you more? What was going through your mind? I know you probably thought about it, but you just never did. Why is that?
I don't I don't think I ever thought about calling the police, because it was normal to me.
Wow.
It was.
Did you ever think he might kill me one day? Like, this guy is beating me up, he may kill me. I have to do
um
something.
I think at one point, yes, but I think I was just so intertwined with the chaos that I
It
didn't.
became your your new normal, the
Mhm.
chaos. Now
Yeah.
I'm concerned about your family and your friends, people that are around you that probably hadn't heard from you, because I know with domestic violence, a lot of times they isolate you, and you mentioned that earlier. But I'm just shocked that nobody checked on you, nobody called, nobody was like, "Hey, Jenifer, we haven't seen you. What's up?" None of that ever happened.
No, and if you think about it, at the age that I was, it was so easy to kind of slip in the cracks. uh all of everybody I was going to school with, they were all moving on with their lives and going off
Everybody's
to
just
college.
busy. Yeah.
Everybody's busy, and I think in my situation, it was just I just slipped through the cracks, and I never told my mom what was going on. I just I kept it hidden from a lot of people, and I hid it very well. Um,
Did he ever beat you bad enough to send you to the hospital?
I never went to the hospital.
Uh,
I and that is typical for a lot of victims. Unless you're on the deathbed, you know, victims walk around with with broken bones all the time. You know, black and blue bruises, and it's rare for them to seek medical attention,
did he
especially with
ever
the abuser.
did he ever sexually abuse you?
I have been sexually abused by an abuser. Um,
The same guy or someone else?
it was another partner.
Uh, so it's like you went from one to another one, and I think that's probably typical. I know you have the degree in it, but it sounds like, from what I've learned, that's very typical to go from one abuser to another one.
So a degree doesn't teach you about life experiences.
Nothing like hard knocks, right?
No,
Wow. So at some point though, Jenifer, you had to look at yourself in the mirror and you just had to say, look, I have to get out of here. What describe that moment for me?
um, I think it was just because I had lived in kind of chaos my whole life. I mean, my dad died when I was a year old, and my mom didn't have a lot of support. I mean, she had like no support because, you know, my family on both sides were just not very healthy, and um I didn't want that for myself, but I didn't want that, you know, I didn't want to repeat that cycle with children. And I think because I blamed myself for so long, I continued, you know, I repeated these same patterns. And it wasn't until I think about 2013, 2014 that um I reached out to my grandparents before they passed away. I hadn't seen them in 17 years. And the reason I reached out to him is because I wanted to know what's wrong with me. You know, when I was in school, um, you know, all the kids are going with their grandparents for the summer, you know, going on vacation. And, you know, we didn't have that. And when I reached out to them, I had already been rejected by them. Um, and this time I reached out to them and I said, you know, I just want to see you guys. And I met my grandmother at the cemetery where my dad was, where my dad's buried. And for the first time in my life, I realized that um, the absence, you know, them being absent in my life, it had absolutely nothing to do with me. It had all to do with them. Like they were still grieving my father after 20 something years. And that was a major turning point for me because again, my whole life I thought, well, something's wrong with me. You know, I didn't have a normal childhood, and then I get in, you know, abusive relationships. I mean, it has to be my fault, right? And that's really when my healing journey began.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. So many people never get to that point though. What did you do? What was your motivation during that time when you were trying to find yourself? I mean, because you were 14 when you got with this first guy, and you really didn't have a chance to grow up. So you were kind of figuring everything out on your own. But what was it that took you across the hill? What was it that got you to the other side?
So there was a girl that I went to school with, and like I said, I battled an eating disorder. I battled bulimia for 13 years, and a girl that I went to school with, um, she passed away, and it became so real for me. Um, I started educating myself more on eating disorders, and again, what's wrong with me? Why do I have this? And I learned, you know, a lot of it had to do with the abuse. Um, and I I just started dealing with a lot of my trauma, and I started surrounding myself with people that were going to empower me instead of keeping me stuck. And in 2014, I was able to get proper treatment, and I went to an outpatient program for eating disorders. And from there, I continued therapy, and, just dealing with a lot of my childhood issues, but also a lot of the issues that I had, from being abused. And
Now, you said something very key there. You dealt with your issues by getting some counseling. There are
uh-huh.
women watching this broadcast, mothers of children who are experiencing this, and they're afraid or they feel like they don't need counseling. What would you say to them? Because that was the start of your healing, by acknowledging first that there was nothing wrong with you and
Hmm.
that you really were okay, but you needed someone to kind of, you know, help you get through that. I'm glad that you mentioned that. What would you say to those people who right now are battling with whether they should get counseling because they don't think it's going to help?
We all need somebody to guide us. We all need some sort of support that is going to be there in a non-judgmental way. Um, and I think that's been a key component for me, even as a substance abuse counselor, um, even as an advocate. That's one of the biggest things that, to this day, I still feel is very important. Therapists need therapy. At the end of the day, we're all humans. Like, we're not immune to life circumstances. And I think there's so much shame and so much stigma around it that it's hard to seek help. And then you have another component that, plays in is, well, if I seek help, are my kids going to be taken away?
Now, wait a minute. Why do you feel that way? Is that some service that's saying that, or is that just what you're thinking?
Well, when you're in a domestic violence relationship, your kids are being exposed to abuse. And um, it can become a factor that can actually lead your kids to be taken away if you don't get help. But I always tell people, it's not the fact that you're getting help to get out of the relationship. It's when you stay in the relationship and you expose your children to the trauma and the abuse, that's when it becomes a problem.
Well, I think that's very good that you bring that out, because you may have just uncovered why a lot of women don't talk, because they don't want to lose their kids, they don't want to lose their services, especially if you are, let's say you're in Section 8 or something like that. Not saying you are, but the women that have to use those services. And I know from being a property manager, the only people that are supposed to be in that house are the people that are on that lease. So
Yeah.
because the government is assisting you with your rent. And if they find out
Right.
that someone else is living there, now not only are you putting your kids at risk, you losing your kids, but you're also at risk of losing your apartment or your home. So I think that, I'm glad that you're able to share your story, because people need to get to the other side. And you at some point you decided, I want to get out of this and I'm going to help other women in the process. Talk to me about that.
So things just kind of fell into place. I went I actually, my goal was to go to school and become a substance abuse counselor. And um, when I got out of treatment the first time, when I went back to school and became a substance abuse counselor.
That is awesome.
And
Incredible. Awesome.
thank you. And
Yeah.
from there, I was like, no, I want to keep going. And I actually went back to school, and that's when I got my bachelor's degree. And that was another experience that I had to go through again, because my educational experience wasn't very well. And the college that I was in, I had so much support. I was just inspired and empowered so much. And like they gave me the world without knowing it. I remember my first semester, and my old professor was saying this not long ago. She's like, where's the Jenifer that walked into my office crying because she couldn't write? And you
Oh,
know she pushed me really hard to do good things in life. And um you know she believed in me when I didn't think.
you didn't believe
I,
in yourself.
no,
Wow.
I mean, in all honesty, statistically speaking, a lot of people don't make it. And I did. And you
Yes.
know uh again, I walked in her office, I was crying, like, I can't do this, I'm gonna quit school, like, this is not for me. And she didn't give me the option. And her and my mom, my mom, despite her own struggles in life, she worked her butt off to do for us, and she did it by herself. And I hope one day I'm gonna repay her back. But
So
yeah, it
eventually your
was.
mom found out about your abuse. She found out that you were suffering. What did she say when you finally told her?
She apologized, and she said she didn't know, and she didn't. I think it's I think it's tough with with the older generations, even our generation, um, because it's something that hasn't been talked about. Um, so I think a lot of our parents or our grandparents, they haven't even dealt with their own trauma
Absolutely. I'm glad you
to
made that.
deal with
Yeah.
ours.
Yes.
Um, and I think times are changing, people are changing, and domestic violence is coming to the light. And it's going to take people like us to keep speaking up and keep using our voice, um, as much as people want to shut us down, because you know that that's the reality. There's going to be people, again, going back to the rape culture. It's your fault. Why did you stay? You did this to yourself. You should have seen the red flags. um and
You've heard it all, huh?
it's just, it's so, it's really disgusting, and it's
What
sad.
would you
And
say to those people that say things like that? Because people do tend to be a little judgmental until it's them or someone they know. So what would you like to say to those people? And you can say exactly how you feel. It's Real Talk TV, sweetheart. So you say exactly what's on your mind because they need to be dealt with. That needs to be dealt with because people are running their mouths about things that they
yeah.
have no idea about, and they don't know how many people they're leaving in that situation because you're discouraging them. So what would you like to say to them other than shut up and be quiet, mind your business? What else would you like to say? I probably said it all,
I
huh?
I actually, I there's some things that I don't say to people, but
Make
you
you
know, I,
feel better.
a lot of the women and even men, because men endure domestic violence as well.
True.
But I always tell people, like, what happened to you. Nobody can ever take that away from you. You know what happened to you. And I think the empowerment comes in because um I'm kind of embarrassed to say,
Girl,
but I
it's all
tell,
right. Your
the people
secret
that I
is
work
safe
with,
with
I just
me.
tell them, like, they're like, well, so and so said this, and I'm like, fuck them hoes.
For someone who didn't know what to say, you said that very well. Well, good. But no, if you're
I
feeling,
just told my secret.
no, it's okay because you know what? Whatever, we all have our thing that we need to help us get through. And for you, it was, you did very well. You did very well for yourself because you got out of this situation. You turned your pain into part of your purpose. And now you're helping other people. You're doing shows like this to help to encourage women, because I think I met you in a domestic violence support group,
Mm-hmm.
and you were sharing information with those ladies. Now, those women that are in that group, what would you like to say to them? Because I read a lot of their posts, and a lot of them are afraid to get out.
Yeah.
They're some women are having to leave with nothing but the shirt on their backs, and what would you say to them? Because at some point, because one of the reasons I got involved with domestic violence is because I had a cousin about a month ago was killed as a result of domestic violence. And it was devastating to our family because we had no idea that she was dealing with this type of thing. And it just the more I look into it, the more I see, the more I meet people like you, the survivors, the victors in this type of situation. So what would you say um to those people that are right now on the fence, and they're like, I want to go, Jenifer, but just like you, I didn't want to leave because he was paying all the bills. I didn't want to leave because this is easier. What would you say to them?
Um, you you're never gonna go back to where you were in your life before. Um, but you have the chance to build something new. It's not gonna get better. Things only get worse. It's really important uh, to have a safety plan in place. Leaving an abusive relationship is the most dangerous time for a victim. It's Victims aren't usually killed when they're in the relationship. It's when they're trying to leave that it becomes very dangerous. Um, and don't underestimate your abuser. Uh, I don't think any person that has been killed by their abuser has thought that
He
it
would
would
kill them.
happen to them. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that a
Um,
lot. Yeah.
and it does. And
Now
just
you talked about that safety plan.
mhm.
Talk a little bit more about that. Let's be more specific to the people that are watching. What does that entail? The safety plan.
So the safety plan is, reaching out to friends, family members, um, letting them know, this is what's going on in the event that something happens. I need you to do X, Y, and Z. If you don't hear from me, um, changing, if when you do decide to leave, seeking a safe place and, uh, not it's almost kind of like going into hiding, um making reports with law enforcement. um I don't Not everybody wants to go to a shelter, and I think meeting we have to meet people where they are,
Right.
um and work from there. But the most important thing is, having people know what's going on, um and having all your important documents, divorce decrees, whether or not you're gonna, are you gonna file a protective order, and if you are, um, how it just kind of depends on each individual situation. But having your documents, having people know what's going on, and are you gonna go stay with friends and family, or are you gonna go stay at a shelter? And
But isn't it true that 9 times out of 10, they know all of your family and friends? They know where you're going to run to. So should you have like a buddy system with someone that he would never guess that you'd be at their house, because
so
he's
you
going to go to the people you know.
So you can, but you can also have, like law enforcement. If you make them aware, you can have extra patrol in your area. Um, at your jobs, at your job, you can, so there's a law against discriminating against domestic violence victims. So, informing your employer, this is what's going on in case this person shows up. Somebody needs to call law enforcement immediately. A
It's like
protective. Uh huh.
it's, it's like you're creating a trail, because Let's say
Yes.
one day you're fighting and you end up, like in the video, stabbing him and killing him. And now they're like, well, you never reported any type of abuse. Like what happens to that woman if she ends up killing him and she never reported it? Like in your case, you never called the police.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to those situations?
Some of them go to jail. They go to prison, and they're actually charged as the offender. Um,
Wow.
and it goes back to, people not speaking up, and reactive abuse. There's a lack of education in law enforcement. There's a lack of education in the courts. Um, but again, that's why victims have to speak up. And I mean, there's going to be people that tell you, oh, it's your fault, shut up, um, you're just seeking attention. And you kind of have to keep your eye on the prize. And no, like, everybody's not going to listen.
Of
You
course.
have people that are set in their ways, and you're, no matter what you say, it's not going to change. But you have to go to the people that are going to listen. And because there are people that will. There are people that are willing to educate themselves on the reality of domestic violence. Um,
So how do we fix it? You said that everyone needs to be educated and there needs to be things implemented that's going to make this a little smoother and make it more safe for people to want to go to the police, to want to go to counseling, to want to try to make that move. Where should we start to fix it and make it easier?
I think we have to start at the top and hold hold law enforcement accountable, hold our state representatives accountable, the district attorney's office, because there's instances when victims, they do call law enforcement, and the police come out and, oh well, i I mean, you don't have blood dripping down your face, it wasn't that bad. um
They've actually said that. You've actually heard them say something like that?
yeah.
Oh no. And what happened? They leave and don't arrest anyone?
No.
So now you really upset him because you call the cops and now he's going to beat you some more.
Yep.
Oh,
Pretty
so
much.
they're putting you in a really tough position. Wow. I didn't,
Yeah, and
wow.
that was actually my other experience, when I did finally reach out to law enforcement with another partner. That was my experience. And here in Houston and Harris County, and I want to say it's all over the place because I speak with advocates from all over. It's just, it's really disturbing. But law enforcement, I think in a study that was done, like 40% of law enforcement are involved in domestic violence relationships. Um, so if you have an offender that comes out and they're covered with a uniform, and you're telling the officer, he just hit me, and the officer's just gonna, they're just gonna kind of brush it
That
under
is
the rug.
very interesting, Jennifer, because you bring up an interesting point. Because if an officer, like you said, comes out and he's going to downplay it because he knows this is the same type of behavior he has. So, in a situation like domestic violence, would you agree that it's better for them to send out someone else when it's a domestic violence situation as opposed to a police officer?
I think so, yes. um we, I don't know how else to say this other than we just have the shittiest system overall, that is, it's just extremely oppressive to victims. um and there's shelters that don't have enough space. There's funding that's not enough. um it's just, it's just a shitty system for any type of victim. Um, but again, it goes back to people not speaking up. You know, I met a family that, um, you know, here in Harris County, they have the PR bond, and this guy had been arrested several times for domestic violence, and he was released on bond. Just he didn't even have to pay to get out, and he ended up killing his pregnant girlfriend.
Oh,
And you know, it's unfortunate because I mean it's a fault in the system. Um,
well, it's time to make some noise. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And you know, there's another, I met another family, you know, the girlfriend, I mean, she even admitted to being abusive to her boyfriend, and she accidentally shot him and was, I mean, she didn't get charged with anything. And you have the family over here that, you know, they're pleading with the district attorney's office, and it's just, you know, nothing is being done. And again, that's it, it starts at the top. um if you know, you have the district attorney's office, you have the law enforcement, they're not doing anything. And you know, it when victims do, when they do speak up, so why speak up if nothing's going to happen? Or you go to court and apply for a protective order, what happens? It was denied because the abuser uses the system to continue to abuse you. And it's, you know, it's just, it's really sad. But you know, I said this in a group not long ago. You know, we're going into 2020, and I truly believe that 2021, I'm sorry, we're going into 2021, and I believe that this is the year for the domestic violence community. You know, we have to keep using our voices, and um not only holding the abusers accountable, but also holding these, you know, these state officials accountable for not taking
Amen.
action.
Yes, I am with that because I have a lot of people that are watching that are really in your corner here, and I'm going to read some of these comments that I'm looking at. Different people are saying, you know, great job, you know, that you got out, you know, you're smiling again, and they're just agreeing with you. I have one that says men have to be taught to be silent giants, and you know, and just to kind of support us. Now, this is what I want to talk to you about. What's the plan? When are we going to march? When do I need to come to Texas? When? Just let a sister know.
So
Because
not long ago, we went and sat. I think it was in October. Um, there had been 3 domestic violence killings in a week in my area, and we went, and you know, we marched outside the DA's office, and it was so sad because they didn't even have the common courtesy to come out and see what we were doing or what we were, you know, what we were speaking up for. And it just shows you the lack of concern. um but I think in the next couple of months, you know, it's something that you know, we're gonna keep making moves and keep using our voices. And
get the
um
media involved. Get the media involved. Get you a spokesperson that has a story of survival, or even a family of someone who didn't survive, and take it to the streets. I'm with you. You know, I want you to do something like this because you're a survivor of this. You won. You beat it, and a
absolutely.
lot of people don't. So we have to do something because I am all for making these state officials accountable. I am with that for
It
real.
starts at
So
qualified immunity. You know, the state officials, you know, they're protected by qualified immunity until that is changed, until a judge holds the officials accountable, and you know, until the Supreme Court takes that away.
Now
it makes.
tell us what that means. Qualified immunity. What do you mean by that?
So as long as a state official is acting within their discretionary function, within their job title, then it doesn't matter whether they fail to do their job.
You can't go after them because they're
they,
protected.
they get protected,
Wow.
and it's
That's
it's
when you have to make some noise and get media involved and just go to the streets and, live stream. The Ella Johnson Show would love to come to Texas and go
I'm
live.
going to Florida.
Well, come on, girl. Come on. This is your neck of the woods anyway. You're from here anyway. So the next time you're in Florida, seriously, I want you to hit me up and let's kind of brainstorm on what we can do, because this is an issue. It took my cousin's life. And so many others. A young lady, Latoya Wells, that was on my show recently, her daughter was killed she's 21 years old, and she was killed by her 20-year-old boyfriend. And he just isolated her from her mom. And so they just didn't know what was going on. They hadn't seen her in like 3 months. Next thing they know, he had shot her, killed her.
Wow.
So it is a problem. It is definitely a problem, and we have to tackle this. And I am excited that you came on the show to share your story. Now, what are you doing now? Because I know that you're a substance abuse counselor and you're just kind of doing all kinds of stuff other than tell people to F themselves. You did that so eloquently. I love it. But what else are you doing right now when it comes to this, so that people that are watching will know if you're able to help them at all?
I do a lot of outreach. I started an institute in 2018, the Institute for Advocacy and Outreach, and I've been trying to build from there. I go into a lot of groups and reach out to victims that are struggling and offer my support or offer my help. Um, I think with domestic violence it becomes tricky because um, a victim's not going to leave until they're ready to leave. But it's also important for them to know, the support is here. Whether it takes you one time, whether it takes you 10 times, you have support. So I do that, and then for the next show, I also am working on a federal lawsuit against.
Yes, I know. We're definitely gonna come bring you back and talk about that, because I'm with that too. Yeah,
Because I believe in, again, you have to hold people accountable. If you
right,
don't, nothing's ever going to change.
right.
So that's what I've been working on, and just building a new website and doing some groups and stuff. And
So if people want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
you can find me directly on Facebook or Instagram, Jenifer Knighton,
And just
Jenifer with
inbox you.
an N.
Okay.
The webpage is under construction, so it's down right now. But yeah, it's Jenifer with one N, and I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I just started doing these little videos with TikTok. I'm gonna be starting a new series soon, called "The Monster Behind," and it's actually gonna be to
That's an interesting title. Where did that come from? That's interesting. Where did you get that from?
So my first series is actually going to be The Monster Behind TikTok. And it's going to be an example for people, kind of what you saw in the video. You'd never think, that this person is an abuser. And it's just to kind of show people, this is the reality of not only victims, but it's also how well abusers are at covering up,
Mm-hmm.
covering up their abuse. Because, sometimes, like, victims, not only me, but, they'll contact the next person and say, like, hey, I I want to let you know, like, this person is an abuser. Oh, you're just the jealous ex-girlfriend.
Oh,
Then the abuser, oh, she's just hating, she's just mad, she's stalking me, when in reality it's the abuser that is not letting go of the victim. So it's just, to bring awareness to people. And um I've been working on this one case for a while. I haven't. I got backtracked because of the lawsuit that I'm working on, but it's in the making. And
when you say working on a case, what do you mean?
Um, the that I had filed the lawsuit
Oh,
against.
that's what you're working on. Yeah, we're not going to talk about it tonight. We'll talk about that another
Yeah,
time because that's
but
very interesting. Also,
okay, another case. Another. It's a domestic violence situation that it's going to bring a light. It's going to bring light to a lot of people again, to see the reality. This person is a very well-known person in um a very well-known person on social media. And he's a very aggressive abuser.
wow. Well, I
uh,
hope you reveal that on the Ella Johnson show whenever you're ready. I think if we keep talking, you might tell me.
he's got
Just saying.
yeah,
You
he
say
has.
well known. Give me a guess. Is it a celebrity? Is it
I'm not giving any idea,
anything? Okay, I tried.
but you would never
Never guess.
never ever guess. I mean, this, like, tons of people that just, like,
So how do
are
you know? How do you know
inspired.
they're an abuser?
Well, because I've already been in contact with several of the victims, and I have the proof.
So
You know,
you're waiting to expose him and bring a case.
um
The lawyer there in the making, huh? Okay.
um
Girl, you just started and you just can't stop.
it's
Next thing you'll have a nonprofit support group for women that are abused. I think that would be great as
we're
well.
working on that. I
All
actually have
right.
a friend, her name is Jenifer Coffin. If anybody is interested in, if you need support, she has a really good organization. It's a nonprofit organization. It's called Freedom Lore. And she actually runs a group on Sunday for domestic violence survivors. And she's, I think by February they're going to have 10 more groups. And then I have another. I mean, there's some really good people that are coming out in the community, and turning their pain into empowerment.
I love it. I love
And
it.
absolutely. But
Well, I want to end with your motto that you had. You said that your motto is we don't choose what happens to us, but we do have a choice to recover and persevere. I love that. I think that's awesome. I think
absolutely.
your life is an example, and it speaks volumes to women who are watching this broadcast who are in a domestic violence situation. Listen, if you're watching this broadcast and you are in a domestic violence situation and you know you need to get out, 1-800-799-SAFE. That's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So reach out. Go to Jenifer Knighton. Her name is here in the display. Reach out to her because she can put you in contact with other types of support groups. She's actually in a support group. There's so many of them on Facebook. Get involved, meet other people that are going through the same thing, and you guys kind of have to help each other through, you
Absolutely.
know? So what would you like to say to everybody before we get out of here, Jenifer?
What you just said.
Ditto.
My therapist tells me that all the time. She's like, "Do you remember when you said you don't have a choice, but you have a choice to recover and persevere?" And I I truly believe that. I I mean, again, statistically speaking, I should be out, in a very bad place right now, but
But you've made a decision that changed your life for the better. Now, do you still have anything to do with that guy? I mean, you have to because he's the father of your children. Um,
I do not. I
you do,
personally do not. No.
oh, so you got rid of, he's gone.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing is
He won't see this video, will he?
I don't care.
Okay. Well, listen, if you ever need to get away, you know how to reach me. I'll hide you. I guarantee you he won't come up in here. That's for real. But anyway, dear, I am so excited. Thank you so much. I think you've helped a lot of people because one thing that's for sure is that people may change their minds after watching this broadcast, and I owe that to you. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for being a guest on my show. I want you to come back now. When you're ready to protest, definitely get me involved. No, seriously. If I need to donate or if I need to come, whatever we need to do, because we are all in this together. I truly believe that. Now, I've never been a victim of domestic violence. But I know a lot of people who have, and I know a lot of people who've lost their life because of it. So we have to turn the corner on this thing and make a difference.
And
So
look at
thank
you. I mean, you are. Thank you for helping us bring it to light. It's important, even if you haven't had an experience, you're still contributing, and that's what we need. So thank you.
Yeah, well, we have to all do our part. Yeah, we have to do what we can. Well, thank you so much, guys. Those of you that are watching, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you for those of you that left words of encouragement. You should go and check it out afterwards, Jenifer, so you can see the different comments
I
that
will.
people made. But they were just very excited for you that you were able to turn your life around and now you're out here helping other people. That is beautiful.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
guys.
Bye.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow night right here on the Ella Johnson Show, Facebook Live and YouTube Live. I have two guests that are coming on with me tomorrow, Kelvin Wilkerson and Voy Nicholas. And we're going to talk about the events that took place last week at the nation's capital. You don't want to miss it. It's real talk right here on the Ella Johnson Show. So I'll see you tomorrow night.